Hey mini enthusiasts, how are you doing? Welcome back. It's part 12 of the Project KITT build, and again just a continuation on from putting the front end of the car. We're just doing the final touches now, so that's doing the final welds on the front panel to inner wings. Just before I start, I thought I would mention that the 27th of January is the mini fair at Bingley Hall. It's on a Sunday, and myself and Mark will be going up, as well as many other YouTubers actually. So I've been in contact with a few, and I think we're doing a Q&A session up there. So there should be all of us sort of congregated in the same area. Not sure what time it is yet. Maybe I can update you when we get closer, but certainly it's myself and Mark, Tom Shorrock from Total Car Reviews, there's Mini Tom, Paul P will be there from Paul P Mini Build, Alex Toon, I believe Alex Toon and Tom Shorrock are both displaying their cars there, Sean C, DB Mini, the DJSE to name a few, and I'm sure there'll be many others as well, so look out for me, or I'm sure you'll see us up there anyway if you go. Mini Fair Bingley Hall, it's a really good show. It's kind of the first show of the year. Good opportunity to pick up a load of parts, especially if you're doing a build or something like that. They generally have some pretty good offers going up there. I also just wanted to apologise in advance. So for this update, this video, there's no close-up shots. So like I say, I do apologise. I know it was mentioned couple of videos ago about a few more close-ups, but this part was actually filmed before those comments were made, so I can guarantee you actually the next update to come out, I've already got the footage from it, and there's loads of close-ups in that one, so hopefully that'll be a lot better for you. So like I say, at the moment we're just finishing off the front end there, and I've gone inside now, so where we welded that inner flitch panel on, I'm just doing the final weld, so there's a few welds where I think the dash rail welds onto the flitch panel from the inside, or the hinge panel, so I'm just doing those final welds in there, and also the front of the floor where it meets the inner wheel arch or flitch panel as well. I think Mark's just cutting out or drilling out the old engine steady mounting bracket which goes onto the bulkhead there. So it's just held on with spot welds, quite a few spot welds on it, because it's obviously quite a stressed part, and it's going on to the main bulkhead. But they always crack, so it's yeah, it was cracked on bolt actually, and it's cracked on kit. So you can buy that whole panel. So just cutting the old one out and welding. I'll come along and I'll weld the new one in a moment. Don't believe in repairing it unless it's only slightly cracked. The problem is it's cracked, so the metal will be fatigued. So you can weld it up, but then all you end up doing is making part of that panel stronger than another part. So if you weld repair a structural panel or part like that, all that generally happens is it just cracks in a different place. So Mark's just spraying some weld through primer onto the bulkhead there, so when it's welded on, obviously that will stop any corrosion forming between the panels. And then that engine steady bracket is just plug welded on, so it's spot welded from factory. Obviously we can't spot weld it because you can't get the spot weld at either side of the panel, so that's just drilled and plug welded. Made the mistake there actually of not turning the gas on. So I get paranoid about turning it off now. I've done this a few times actually. You start to weld, you haven't turned the gas on, because there's still a little bit of pressure in the pipe. It'll allow you to do a couple of spot welds before you then get the third weld. Is generally a bit naff, where it goes all porous because you haven't got any shielding gas. So that's the front end done now. It's finished. No more to do on the front end there, apart from maybe just clean up some of the welds. So we're just getting the Mini back on the jig now. So originally we removed it off the jig so we could send it away to be shot blasted and etch primed. And obviously it's come back. We fitted the front end on. So now we're just going to put it back on the jig. Got the heel board to finish, and there's a few little bits to finish on the sills and the floor on the underside of the car. So the jig itself is really useful. It come from a company called Rollover Jigs. I think their email address is just www.rolloverjigs.com. And they do rollover jigs for all sorts of classic cars, not just minis. They're very good, quite a good price. The only thing I would say is I think the mini jig, it starts out at sort of £299, but that's just a basic jig. There are no caster wheels on it, there's no lifting brackets, it's not painted, and basically by the time you add all the extra bits on it, I think that jig come in at about £600 in the end. So does add up, but it is a very, very good jig. It's a good design, it's well balanced, and it's very, very sturdy. Mark's just gone off for a bit of help, I think. There are actually brackets so you can lift it up onto the jig. Just one person can do it. There's like an adjusting bracket that you screw a bolt in and it lifts it up. But yeah, just to make it quicker and easier, if you've got a few of you around, you can see there we just lift the whole Mini up, stick a nut and bolt through, tighten it up, and job done then. So there's various different holes and adjustments on the jig itself, so you can adjust sort of the centre of gravity, you can adjust the angle of it and everything like that. It's quite important to try and get the centre of gravity about right so it rotates nicely, otherwise it can be a real job. You should be able to rotate it with one person. And then finally you have the beam between the two, the front and rear part of the jigs, just holds it all together and all in line. And like I say, that's a really sturdy jig that. So you'll see in the next episode actually we take it out the garage door, out onto the driveway and sort of turn it around and bring it back in. So now I'm just finishing up bits on the front of the floor pan there. So there were just some unfinished welds along the front there. And Mark is cutting out, I think, yeah, Mark's cutting out the old heel board off the back there. So just ready for the new heel board repair panel to go in. And I'll just mention actually, while I'm doing that front of the floor pan there, obviously there was still some seam sealer left over. Even though it's been shot blasted, it never gets rid of it all. And certainly where it gets in between two panels, I don't know what it is about seam sealer, but when you come to weld around it, if you've got any left on there, obviously it catches fire because it's flammable, but it also makes a real mess of your welds as well. So if you get anywhere near seam sealer and it heats it up, whatever it is, the gas it gives off, it really just makes your welds go horrible. So if you can, it's really worth just make sure and spending a little bit of extra time and making sure you've got all the seam sealer off. So just while we're doing that, actually, I thought I'd just mention, so obviously, like I say, this is a themed build. It's based on KITT, the 80s TV program, American TV program, Knight Rider. Mark contacted a company in America. I think they're called Mark's Custom Kits. I'll try and stick a picture in here if I can, if I remember. But basically they do a complete dashboard with all the instrumentation, you know, a replica of the KITT dashboard, and it's really, really good. As I say, you'll see from the photo, everything works, all the buttons, all the dials. It's even got two small TV screens in there. Everything works, and it looks really, really authentic as well. So Mark approached them about building a custom one for the Mini. Obviously, the ones they do are made for Pontiac Trans Ams, but they'll do them for other cars as well. You wouldn't believe the price they quoted. So first off, they said they'd have to have the Mini shipped over to America, which is fair enough. It's a custom build, so got to make sure it's right. So you can probably write off a few £1,000s shipping that over there and getting it back. The actual quote to design, install, and that was fully working with all the instruments working and everything like that, was $50,000 to $65,000. So as you can imagine, we're probably not going to do that. I think what Mark's going to do actually is buy the bare mould, and I'm sure we can buy switches and dials and make something up over here. So while I'm just finishing off the floor there, Mark's just stripping down the rest of that rear subframe. So it's a used rear subframe. We've got new bushes and everything for it, but at the moment what we're going to do, or I will just we'll fit the new bushes on that subframe, fit the mounting points just so we can fully fit that in the back of the car, so we can make sure that the heel board's going to fit perfectly. So although we've measured it up, I don't want to risk welding the heel board in and then having alignment issues later on. So what we actually do is fit the subframe, fit the heel board to the subframe, and then mark it before we finally weld it in place. So it was quite a job this, it's not that easy to do. Yeah, it's not a nice job fitting the heel board on the back there. It's welded in quite a few places. Like I say, you've really got to make sure you get the alignment right. And this was the side as well. This was the side we had the end machine panel, the inner and outer seal assembly, and that just didn't line up very well on the back there. In the end, we ended up drilling out the spot welds along the outer seal, moving it out by 4mm, and then later on in this video we just weld it back in place. So it wasn't fantastic at the back there anyway, and again we had to do a bit of fiddling around, getting everything lined up, and just doing a fair amount of adjustment just before welding it in place. But again, it's worth spending the time now, because once it's painted, once it's in under seal, you've got to make a real mess of it to get it right again. I also just wanted to apologise in advance. So for this update, this video, so there we go. I think that's the subframe in for the last time there, the rear subframe, and yeah, just bolting it all up. That'll be final fit of that heel board now, prior to welding it up. Unfortunately, I think Mark cut it a little bit short. It was only a few millimeters, but rather than weld sort of a strip in, which was a couple of millimeters wide, I think we cut out sort of a 2-inch gap and welded a plate in there. But yeah, we don't always get it perfect first time, I assure you. So when we take the subframe out now, that's it, done with the subframe. So Mark sent both subframes off to be shot blasted and powder coated. I can't wait to see what they look like. So the subframes are being done in candy apple red. Quite a reasonable price as well. So I've painted a subframe before and they're hard work. So yeah, for what it's costing, they're going to come back sort of shot blasted, cleaned, powder coated. It'll be candy apple red, which I'm sure will look really, really sort of punchy and stick out on a black car. And I think the floor as well, all the underneath is going to be candy apple red as well. So yeah, I'm sure it will stand out, but that's the whole idea of it. It's meant to be a shown car. So yeah, it's meant to look interesting. Might not be to everyone's taste, but I'm sure it will look interesting anyway. So by this point, actually, I'm kind of get to a point in a build where you've just had enough of cutting, grinding, and welding. And certainly the next update, I'm sort of sick of it by then. The good news is, however, that by the next update, we should be done. I think, pretty sure. There's rear valance to go on. What else? Not much else at all. So by next update, we should be done on the bodywork, welding, cutting, grinding, etc. So I did get asked as well. One of the comments recently was, how many hours have we put into the build so far? So up to this point, I keep a log of it. So write it all down, what we done, when we done it, how long we spent doing it. We are up to 38 hours at the moment. This update, 38 hours, which doesn't sound a great deal, but there's two of us working on it. So, you know, you can probably almost double that. So if you said we're more, if you was on your own, we're probably 75 hours into the build now, which is all right actually. I mean, when you work out the cost of the panels, you know, heritage shell nowadays is nearly £10,000. So, you know, we've probably put, or Mark has put, probably £1,500 of panels into it so far, and there will be no rust on it. Every piece of rust, pretty much, no matter how small, has been cut out. So it's definitely worth doing. It's worth putting the time in. But I think it is worth mentioning when people get quotes from garages for restorations and repair work, and they're often quite shocked at how much it costs. I think when you watch something like this, it really gives you an appreciation of how much work can or needs to go into a restoration to do it right. I mean, you can budget up. You know, you can leave rust behind, you can cover rust over with filler and stuff like that, but it's just not worth it. Not if it's your own car anyway. So I'm starting to get really excited now about what this car's going to look like. At the moment, it's kind of all in Mark's head. He's got all the ideas, he gives me snippets and little suggestions and things he's got in mind that he's going to do, but it will be interesting to see. I honestly don't know at the moment, so and like I say, this part of the build actually is kind of the boring bit, you know, the welding, getting rid of the rust. It's fun to begin with, but like I say, you soon get bored of it. But when we get to the point of painting the car, putting all the details on, like I say, I think that's where it's going to get really interesting. And obviously Mark's very ambitious about what he wants to do with the build. Not quite as ambitious that he wants to spend $65,000 for someone to make him a dashboard, but to be fair, I wouldn't blame him. I don't think I'd pay that either. But the dashboard, I'm sure is going to look very, very good actually. Like I say, I'm pretty sure Mark's going to get the bare dash, and then we'll get it built up. build it up with all the instruments and buttons and lights and dials and everything like that ourselves. So we're just going along now and just plug welding that outer sill now. Like I say, that sill come complete, but that's the one we had to drill out the spot welds, move it out 4mm and weld it back in. It's a little bit of a pain actually, because since then it's been painted in etch primer, so obviously I had to scratch out the paint out of all the holes, ready to MIG weld. So once again we're approaching the end of this video. This one's gone on a bit actually. There's quite a lot of footage for this. I do apologise, a little bit boring this one because there are no close-ups. But yeah, I think as I've sort of explained in previous videos actually, we kind of just get carried away. But I'm more conscious of it. Certainly the week after this, which is the footage I've got ready to edit and upload now, there's quite a lot more close-ups in it, and obviously just trying to do a bit more with the camera where we can. But it takes a long time to get all this edited, upload it, cut it, do the narration. It's probably, I reckon it's probably 3 to 4 hours, maybe a little bit less than that per episode. So I hope you enjoy it. Like I say, I do apologise, a little bit longer this one, run over just to 22, 23 minutes. I try and keep them at, you know, around about 20 minutes, because to be honest, I'll get bored of watching stuff any longer than that. So thanks for watching, guys. Like I say, the next update is filmed, ready to go, so that should be coming up soon. And if you made it this far, yeah, well done. Thanks for watching. Catch up with you soon, and I hope you all have a good week.